What's up, y'all? This is your girl, Megan. Welcome back to the Hood Astro Queen, to all of my returning subscribers. But if this is your first time joining me on today, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way in because you know you want to. And don't forget to hit that notification bell. That way you will be alerted pronto whenever I make a new post, okay? So today, in honor of Gemini season, I wanted to hit y'all with a celebrity birth chart reading for one of the most highly requested celebs ever. And I just never, I don't know why, got around to doing his chart before in the past, but I figured this would be a perfect opportunity. The one, the only, I would call him my baby father, but I got five baby fathers, five celebrity baby fathers. So, what, I don't know what he is, but my crush from the 90s, Tupac Shakur, okay? The one and the only. Literally. I don't even have to do the whole introduction spiel because I'm pretty sure even the youngins, y'all know who Tupac Shakur was, the type of impact that he had on the music industry, and honestly, the collective conscious of society as a whole has literally been unmatched, and people try to duplicate it over and over again. Every rapper, right, who's a little street, a little thug, who might write a little poem here and there, want to call themselves the next Pac, Tupac, new Pac, yo Pac, my Pac. No. It's only one. Okay, and he is dead and gone. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and pay homage the best way we can. All right, so Mr. Tupac Shakur was born June 16th, 1971 in Manhattan, New York. And that's something that a lot of people don't know. Just because he's been so attached and affiliated to the West Coast, to Cali. California literally claims him as one of their own when it comes to just celebrities and famous rappers. However, he definitely got his roots in New York. And he was born to Afeni Shakur, which maybe you guys know. I guess everybody pretty much knows the Pac story at this point. But his mom was a Black Panther member. She actually... I think she went to court and defended herself, basically against these claims, these bogus claims of terrorism that the government was trying to pin on both her and Asada and a couple of the other members of the Black Panther Party, and won. She was pregnant with Tupac, unexperienced, no lawyer whatsoever, no legal background, and defended herself, and I think got everybody off on trial, but I'm getting sidetracked. But yes, June 16th, 1971. And the biggest thing about his birthday is the fact that he's a number 16. And there's something that I've kind of noticed just amongst a lot of celebrities who have that number 16, or just people in general. 16 in numerology is a very unfavorable number because it literally represents catastrophe, disasters. It can bring about untimely deaths. It can bring about accidents. And it can bring about scandals and just very much situations that are beyond your control, So a lot of 16 people, if they are celebrities, these people literally meet some type of either untimely demise or befall some type of, like I said, tragic circumstance of some sort. A good example, two really good examples of this 16 energy is Aaliyah, who was born on January 16th. Y'all already know what happened to her. And then also Selena. Her. And she was gunned down premature, I think at the age of 23, by the head of her fan club. So, that's just kind of a taste of that number 16 energy. So in a way, he was kind of already destined to have, somewhat of a tragic story, or at least live a very dramatic life. So this makes him, of course, a Gemini sun, Aries moon. Now, Gemini, just in and of itself, I'm pretty sure a lot of people know him for representing literally a lot of those Gemini traits because across the board, right? Witty, people knew him as being larger than life, funny. Gemini is governed by Mercury, so it's all about these people can make for very intellectual, very inquisitive people, very logical, and like I said, very intelligent. And Mercury is the type of energy, because it governs the mind and it governs communication. These people tend to be like information hoarders. They tend to be very outspoken. They tend to know a little about a lot. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that personally from a lot of Geminis that I've just interacted with. You know, Gemini is a type of sign that is very much like, they're like a sponge for information, which made Pac very cultured, very rounded, very knowledgeable, you know what I'm saying, on a lot of different issues, which is what made him stand apart from pretty much almost every other rapper for the most part of his time, because he was so complex, so layered, and then also so versatile. And Gemini does deal with versatility. So that was that. But then also he was infamous for that duplicity thing, that two sides thing. So he had this one kind of part of his persona, which was very much poetic, very vulnerable, sensitive. He used it to address very hot topic issues in the Black community, such as Brenda's got a baby. And then also one of my favorites, the keep your head up, ooh, child. Things are gonna get easier. I mean, you know, it was a remake, but you know what I mean, okay? But then on the flip side, this nigga would just like pop up and be like, yeah, that's why I fucked your bitch, you fat motherfucker. Yeah, my fofo make sure all your, like, whoa. So like he had this super gangsta-licious type of persona, hyper aggressive, hyper masculine. I mean, he has hella masculine energy in his chart. So like there's that, but just like super thugged out, stomping a nigga at a hotel or a casino. But then it's like super, like I said, vulnerable, sensitive, charismatic. I mean, and it just combined to create this like whirlwind of like, it was hard, even when he did despicable shit or said off the wall shit. Like I remember there was a video of him spitting on somebody, like, you know, everybody knows when you spit on somebody, like that is literally like the utmost form of disrespect, you know? So it's like he would do things that you would hate him. You would hate the things that he did. But like, it was so hard to just cast him out as a person, because he kind of resonated with your psyche. It was so weird. Like Tupac was a mind fuck, and you can tell that he struggled within himself. And a lot of times Geminis do have, like, it's not like they're being fake, but like, you know, there are literally two people that live inside of him, or inside of most Geminis. So one person might have actually been a hood booger, and then the other one might have been, you know what I'm saying, Mother Teresa, we are the world, let me hug everybody and make sure we all looking out for each other type of thing. And with his sun being conjoined to his Mercury and his Venus, this kind of just like reinforces that. Like it reinforces that theme of like, you know, him being very intellectual, him being very hell-bent on communication. I mean, after all, Gemini is the sign of the mouthpiece, right? So you vocalizing your thoughts, vocalizing what you think is right. And this is also reinforced with his sun trining his Mars in Aquarius. And we'll get to that a little bit later because it's conjoined to his North Node. But, you know, it deals with him lending his intellectualism, if you will, and his voice to very like humanitarian causes. You know what I'm saying? Trying to better the community and just in a very passionate way, you know? And then with, like I said, his sun being conjoined to Mercury and Venus, that Venus brings beauty to whatever it touches. So it made him very well received. You know, the sun is also your claim to fame, and it's what people know you for. So over time, he kind of gained this overall reputation as this person who, you know, is going to be very much adamant and outspoken for like civil rights, liberty, justice, and is going to be very passionate because Mars does deal with passion. So that trying to his Mars, but very passionate about the things that he feels is right. So there's that. And then also he's a Aries moon. And of course, I mean, that Aries moon explains a lot. For example, you got your Cardi B's, Okay, she has an Aries moon. T.I. has an Aries moon. I think Remy Ma has an Aries moon. I'm not sure because, she has two different birth dates circulating, but different story for a different day. But the point I'm trying to illustrate here is Aries moon creating a person who is very much, they can get reputations for being hot-tempered, impulsive, hotheads. These people can be very much, they're independent and a lot of times selfish, but not necessarily in like the most horrible sense of the word. Because, when people say selfish, it's like automatically assumed to be a negative quality. But Aries kind of as a sign has there's a need for Aries to be selfish because Aries is the head. Aries is the leader. So if the leader isn't together, you see what I'm saying? If there's no leader to guide the pack, we all fucked up. So, Aries just as a sign has to be about self first so that way it can assist and aid others. And if channeled productively in a higher vibrational kind of way, it can be very beneficial. So on a positive note, you saw this in Tupac as him being a leader, as him being somebody who was very much not afraid to take charge. And somebody who was also very independent and trailblazing, very unique. Somebody who sets the trend in a way. That's Aquarius energy too, but somebody who kind of creates the path, a trailblazer, and he very much was. He still has rappers today trying to take that same downtrodden path, and it doesn't work for them. Okay, because he was the first of his kind. But then also he manifested a lot of the negative qualities of his moon, which was, once again, being violent, combative, explosive. This also creates a daredevil, which Pac definitely was, and somebody who could have a lot of very self-destructive tendencies. It also creates a situation with the mom that's very, like perhaps you had an abusive mom or there was a lot of family strife and turmoil, just from a domestic perspective, which Pac kind of spoke a little bit about during that song, Dear Mama. He was just talking about how he grew up in a single parent household. He gave his mother hell and there was a lot of squabbling and he pretty much took responsibility for it. But the Aries moon kind of reflects that. And it reflects a mom who's like a badass, you know what I'm saying? Which Afeni was, A lot of his issues with his mother are reinforced as his moon is opposing his Pluto. So and that could create just a very tumultuous relationship or intense, should I say, because he was very clear that he loved his mother, but it was a very intense relationship that went through a lot of different transformations, and that's that Pluto. His moon is also conjoined to his Chiron at that 13th degree of Aries, honey. That number 13 deals with death and sudden transformation. And Aries deals with weapons. It deals with violence, like sudden violence, extreme violence, bullets. So, right here, it definitely could point towards him, being shot, being killed through gunfire. And that can actually be reinforced with his Mars and Chiron opposing his Uranus in Libra, as it can point towards somebody who is even set up by friends, somebody who was conspired against because Libra does deal with open enemies, or who has harm brought towards them by open enemies. And like I said, with that number 13 dealing with death, Uranus is very sudden, all of a sudden type of incidents. Meeting a very sudden, tragic demise. But the most important part of this aspect is that it was very orchestrated, carefully orchestrated, and particularly orchestrated by people whom he could have done business with, as Libra does deal with business partnerships, but then also interpersonal relationships, like friendships and things of that nature. Should. But I'll get into a synastry reading of Suge and Tupac on a later date. But at this point, because I know we've watched every Tupac documentary and the book, movie, you name it, we can all agree on the fact that he was set up, and his chart definitely coincides with that. Now, with his Mars trining his Jupiter. This points towards Pac being very much in occult activity, because his Jupiter is at the 28th degree of Scorpio. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he was very intuitive, if he was kind of abreast to certain knowledge. And that wouldn't surprise me at all. However, this kind of overarching theme in his chart that I wanted to speak on is the fact that Pac, his Jupiter is opposing his Saturn, which is at the 29th degree of Taurus. That 29 deals with, it's known as the anaretic degree or the crisis degree. It brings about upheavals, struggles, third-party interference. And, Jupiter opposing Saturn, just as an aspect, can create this kind of push and pull effect, because Jupiter makes everything bigger and then Saturn makes everything like constricted, right? Saturn shows a lack and then Jupiter shows abundance or excess. And I feel like there was a struggle that was taking place within Tupac that consisted of him fighting between his like more human desires and materialistic desires versus his higher self, his intuitive nature, and what he felt was right. You know what I mean? And then the fact that his Saturn, because wherever Saturn is placed in your chart is going to show you where you're going to go through a lot of issues. Like, it brings fear, it brings hardships, it brings hard lessons. And, especially with the 29th degree, it probably even made him hard-headed. And with Taurus being the sign of finances, this could have pointed towards Pac actually having a very superficial side also. Being very materialistic, being very much caught up in, like I said, sensual pleasures. So, kind of like I look at this as him being distracted from his mission, being caught up in sex, women. And one thing that sticks out in my mind, I watched that Tupac movie that nobody liked back, a few years ago. I thought it was all right, but I remember there was a line, and I don't know if Afeni really said this in real life, but this is kind of what's sticking out to me when she said, be careful what you do, because these people, meaning, quote unquote, the powers that be, will give you everything that you need to destroy yourself and watch you do it. And him having his Saturn at the 29th degree of Taurus kind of represents that to me. Him overindulging. And especially with that 29th degree dealing with third-party interference. You know what I'm saying? Him being set up to, be this type of person who kind of loses himself in, like I said, the more shallow parts of life. Taurus is very shallow, very surface level, very superficial. Taurus doesn't go deep. But on the other hand, Jupiter is very deep. It's hella deep. Jupiter represents, or not Jupiter, but Scorpio rather. And Jupiter represents underground, things that are hidden. Like I said, even occult knowledge, intuitiveness, even psychic abilities. So I feel like he was fighting that. He was torn. And ultimately, I feel like it led to his demise, just because he couldn't get himself around. He couldn't find that perfect balance between this opposition. But another thing in his chart that kind of reflects this kind of push and pull, this sense of conflict, is the fact that he is a Leo South Node. And, of course, Aquarius North Node, with that Mars at the 18th degree conjoined to the North Node. Now, Leo South Nodes have a karmic responsibility to basically step out of the spotlight, okay? And step out of their ego, step out of your bag and really get down and dirty and serve other people. And there were points in his career, like I said, because it was like a back and forth thing where he would reflect a lot of these Aquarian North Node traits, especially with his Mars conjoined to his North Node, because Mars deals with fighting, warfare, how you fight, aggression, what you fight for. So he was very aggressive and relentless in the way that he went went about trying to raising the vibrational level of like the consciousness, really, because that's what Aquarius deals with. A lot of Aquarians, especially Aquarian North Nodes, are here to help raise the collective conscious of like society, and anytime you're not really fulfilling that type of energy, relying on that South Node, because Leo deals with entertainment. It deals with the celebrity. It deals with the spotlight. It deals with materialism. Once again, that reoccurring thing of materialism, kind of like excess. Anytime you're dwelling in that, it's going to bring you strife. It's going to bring you problems. It's going to bring you, in Tupac's case, I feel like his demise, his death, him being engulfed in the entertainment industry, hanging around all of these seedy characters, not really drawing that line in the sand soon enough to really dedicate his entire being to what he was supposed to be here to do, is what ultimately put him in situations to where, he's no longer here. Yeah, and his Saturn is forming a trine to his Pluto, which kind of reinforces that. It reinforces him kind of succumbing, especially with him being a Virgo Pluto, like because Pluto and Virgo does deal, depending on other aspects in the chart. It's the perfect placement for like a prostitute, somebody who deals like, because Virgo deals with like your profession, your work, everyday work, your health, your routine, and it could deal with somebody who either has like a disdain or issues in the workplace, or somebody who is immersed in a very seedy kind of work environment. You know what I mean? And for Pac, I feel like with this trine here, this could represent him kind of succumbing to that, his work environment providing him with, like I said, all of the tools, quote unquote, that he needed to really distract him from what really needed to be going on. Yeah. And then also something else I wanted to point out about his chart was the fact that his sun is squaring his Pluto. Now, sun square Pluto, I always call this the Illuminati aspect. Of course, I don't believe in the Illuminati as people would see on YouTube, like, oh, it's the reptilian race. Beyonce and Jay-Z are in a back room filled with smoke and whatever. I think these are people who are definitely surrounded by a lot of other powerful people. They can be used as scapegoats. They can be used as fall guys, etc., etc. But then also with Sun, I also see Sun square Pluto in the charts of people who die early. Not to say if you have Sun square Pluto in your chart that count your days, like you're about to die tomorrow. But a lot of these people, because Aaliyah had Sun square Pluto also, these people undergo a lot of transformations to their identity, which makes me believe had he lived, Pac would have eventually kind of transformed, right? That word transformation, into a different person and took on a different persona. He definitely would have grown out of that death row stage, which honestly is arguably part of the reason why he died in the first place, but that's debatable. So there's that. But then also Sun square Pluto can create somebody who's fascinated with death. And Tupac was he was actually known, like he was kind of infamous for being so, morbid. And in a way, it created the question, like, did he bring this kind of energy to himself? Because he was always speaking so vividly of like his death in particular, him dying, almost to where it's like he kind of knew he wasn't going to be around for very long. But there's this very keen interest in death, particularly your death, which with this aspect, if you dwell on that energy too long, can kind of aid in manifesting exactly that, like that ultimate transformation. You know what I mean? And also with his Saturn opposing his Neptune, this is another aspect that can create somebody who attracts or who manifests a lot of the energy that they, most likely like the things that they fear, if they dwell on those things too long, they can attract it, because Saturn does deal with your fears. And this could also create for somebody who is very vulnerable, It makes him very vulnerable to deception, scandal, and even like psychic attacks and negative energy. So, and it kind of also supports him being involved in some type of occult, especially with his Neptune in Sagittarius. Sagittarius deals with religion, spirituality, things of that nature. I'm convinced Tupac was definitely involved in the occult in some way. And I also wouldn't be surprised if he had experienced a lot of different like psychic attacks too, especially, just throughout his life, like leading up to his death. So there's that. And for the most part, those were pretty much like the biggest parts of his chart that stood out to me. And all in all, everything happens for a reason. Like I said, I feel like a lot of this was just, predestined. And so with that being said, this concludes my reading on Mr. Tupac. Y'all drop down in the comment section. Let me know what you thought of this reading, as well as any suggestions you may have for any future celebrity birth chart readings. And as always, make sure you practice unconditional self-love so that you can love others. And until next time, I holla.